lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today to talk about some underhyped romances. If you didn't know, this is a 7 on Sunday topic, and I'm the host of 7 on Sunday. I will link the Goodreads page down in the description where you can check it out and you can participate in a topic in the future, or you can suggest a topic. In this week's topic, I really wanted to shine a spotlight on some romance novels that I think that more people should read, but I really feel like not many people have picked these romance novels up, and I would personally love to extend an invitation to those who are wanting to read more romance novels to pick these books up, because I honestly feel like these books deserve so much more hype. So on here, I have 7 novels and 2 manga series that I reckon any romance lover would enjoy. And personally, I want more people talking about these series. Without further ado, let's get straight into these underhyped romances. I mean, underhyped in my opinion. These could be hyped somewhere if someone was to dive deep into book talk, or if some readers were to dive deep into the internet and there are actually people talking about these. I mean, I've heard about these a couple of times on the internet. I just want to hear more about them, so I'm recommending them. Without further ado, I'm going into those books. First of all, I would like to start off with the book that I like the most from this author, and I think the most ironic thing about this book is that it's not a full-length novel. It is a novella, and that, my friends, is Once More Upon a Time by Roshani Chokshi. I prefer this book from Roshani Chokshi over anything that she's written so far, but I mean, if we're talking about full-length novels, I love The Star Touch Queen by Roshani Chokshi. I also liked The Gilded Wolves, but I did not really appreciate the last 2 books in that series, whereas Once More Upon a Time I feel like is the perfect bite-sized romance. This romance novella is a second chance romance between a king and a queen, or a prince and a princess. I'm trying to remember because I read it a year ago. I still think about it to this day and how I want to revisit it. I love the chemistry between the two. It's pretty much a hate to love dynamic, even though they are already married. The 2 main characters have some sort of resentment against each other. Their witty banter, their snarkiness toward each other kind of makes the reader root for them even more, because I feel like that snarkiness just brings them together. Also, because this is medieval inspired, it just feels like one of those captivating romances where you just hope that the characters are going to be okay, as well as hoping that they will end up together. And I mean, it's a very short story, so it's very easy to get through, but I found this novella to be quite the delight, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who is wanting some sort of bite-sized romance story, because I really feel like this novella just did it for me. I feel like not many people have been talking about this ever since it was published in its print format. It was like an Audible exclusive at one point, but if you're wanting a good pick-me-up, this is definitely a good pick-me-up. This one definitely made me smile. And speaking of books that make me smile, I mean, good romances definitely make me smile. Here for the Right Reasons also very much made me smile. It made me cry. It made me laugh. It made me laugh really hard, actually. What I personally appreciate about Here for the Right Reasons is that it is directly inspired by The Bachelor, but not just The Bachelor, like the Australian version of The Bachelor. Jodie McAllister is Australian herself, and she is writing Aussie characters. The humor, the references, all of it is just hilarious. I personally appreciate it because I'm Australian myself. So reading Here for the Right Reasons definitely made me feel at home, but I love any sort of reality television setting when it comes to my contemporary fiction, and Here for the Right Reasons delivered that. If you are wanting a very compelling story that is inspired by The Bachelor, but also very much calls out The Bachelor for its toxicity, and I personally appreciate it. I mean, I did personally enjoy the romance that sparked between the 2, but I also very much appreciate that this novel called out the problematic elements of a reality TV show like The Bachelor. The next book I'm just about to recommend also does that as well, but compared to the next book I'm going to mention and recommend, I appreciate Here for the Right Reasons because it's more on the Australian end of things. However, you do not need to be Australian to appreciate this novel and its messages and the romance. The romance in here is absolutely adorable. I love these 2 so much, and I love the side romance, or the side romances I should say, that blossom in the background of this novel, and I'm so excited for this companion series. And yes, speaking of romance novels inspired by reality television, I have The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. I need more people reading The Charm Offensive. I have been seeing so many people talk about Kiss Her Once for Me, but I did not see all of you guys when The Charm Offensive came out. No, no. I need more people reading The Charm Offensive ASAP. This novel is absolutely perfect. As I'm speaking right now, I have not yet read Kiss Her Once for Me. I actually received it yesterday as I'm filming this, so I'm really excited to finally read it. But I wasn't anticipating that novel until I read The Charm Offensive. And if, once again, you are wanting one of those romances that will pull on your heartstrings and that will probably make you cry, but will also make you happy and overwhelmed with joy, The Charm Offensive will 100% be that for you. It is the perfect romance novel in my opinion. I still think about The Charm Offensive to this day, and I think I read it like, what, in February or March of last year. I still think about these characters vividly. I still think about the situations that they were put through. I still think about how emotional I was while reading this novel, but also how happy I was. I genuinely felt like I was following these characters on a reality TV show for a while. This reading experience, I'd have to say, was relatively quick, but I think that the Charm Offensive story has stuck with me longer than, I don't know, the last season of Love is Blind. And I mean, I religiously follow Love is Blind, and I dedicate my time to stalking that show. I'd have to say, not just in terms of story, but in terms of addictive quality, The Charm Offensive had that for me. The Charm Offensive felt real to me, and I reckon that that's the best thing about it. Even though, of course, it's not actually reality television, it is very much fiction. This novel felt real to me, and I want more people to give this novel an opportunity for it to feel real to them. I'm gonna move on to a manga recommendation, and the first manga recommendation I have is Imakoi Now I'm in Love. I personally love this shoujo manga series because the love story starts from volume 1 and moves on. This is not a slow burn situation. It is actually about falling in love and what happens after you fall in love. What happens when you are currently finding your feet in a relationship and you're developing a relationship. I am personally appreciative of the series because it very much breaks the romance novel stereotypes and even the shoujo stereotype. I mean, I love romance, and I especially love romance when there is a slow burn and there is a payoff. However, with this series, you don't necessarily get the anxiety of the characters and whether or not they end up together. You have some sort of anxiety for like whether or not they're going to work out based on the relationship that they already have. Except not much anxiety, because a lot of it is very wholesome. However, because you are in the protagonist's head a lot of the time, she does have the anxiety of, oh, well, like, he's so experienced and I'm so new to this, so I don't know whether he would think I'm weird or not. Does he think I'm weird? So you get to hear about the protagonist's anxieties based on like being in their head. Overall, it's just absolutely cute. If you're wanting a wholesome time, but also to follow some characters who have a little bit of realism to them, even though the story is too good to be true, I would definitely recommend Imakoi Now I'm in Love. The second and last manga recommendation I have to give is The King's Beast by Ray Toma. The King's Beast is actually a spin-off to another series by Ray Toma. I believe that's called Dawn of the Arcana. I personally have not read that one, and I personally haven't even seen it in bookstores, but I heard about The King's Beast and I wanted to give it a try, and I love The King's Beast. It has some wholesome elements to it, but also, once again, it's one of those emotional reads that will definitely pull on your heartstrings because, unfortunately, there are biases and prejudices in this world that the protagonist has to experience. The protagonist essentially has to masquerade as a male in order to infiltrate a palace. There's a romance that sparks based on that. And oh boy, does it give me Mulan vibes. I'm absolutely living for it. I also very much appreciate this series because of its art style. Look, I mean, look at the panel. It's so emotional. And art just seems so emotional, but like, amazing. I love the art style of the series. I love the story direction so far. I've read 3 volumes and oh, forgot this was a manga for a second. And I would definitely recommend it to absolutely everyone. If you are a fan of fantasy romance, but you don't know where to start in manga, The King's Beast is an excellent fantasy romance shoujo that definitely has a slow burn element to it. I'm still yet to experience the reveal in the series, but when I do, I'll let you know, and we'll see how much I cry based on that. And speaking of fantasy romance, I mean, this is on the lighter side of the spectrum. I'd say that this is probably more paranormal. It has fantastical elements. It's Witch Plays by Anna Guire. This series is the Fix-It Witches series. It's very much contemporary-esque. However, the protagonist and some side characters have magical powers. And I just find this series to be absolutely wholesome. I feel like Boss Witch dives a bit deeper because that is a romance between a witch and a witch hunter. So the hate-to-love dynamic is there, but also it's much more political than the first one. This one, Witch Please, is definitely a lot more lighthearted and a lot more fun. It's absolutely cute. So I would personally recommend Witch Please if you were wanting something light and fluffy fluffy. However, if you were wanting to continue on with this world, Boss Witch is my favorite book in the series so far. I'm still yet to read Extra Witchy, which is the third book in the series, but when I do, I will let you guys know whether or not the series is worth continuing on. But what I do know is that Boss Witch is the best book in the series, but Witch Please is the perfect way to start off the series. It's definitely a very light palate cleansing book, so if you've read anything heavy, Witch Please is definitely a good solution for that. However, if you wanted me to recommend a heavy read, Twice in a Blue Moon is quite the heavy read. This is a romance novel about a second chance romance, except here's the thing. You get to experience this romance happen twice. First half of this novel is when the two characters end up together for the very first time, and then there's a time jump in the second half of the novel, and that is essentially their second chance romance. But what I like about the second chance romance as opposed to the other ones that I've read is that you get to experience the initial heartbreak of the romance happening for the first time and ending for the first time, and it's devastating. Twice in a Blue Moon is probably one of the best Christina Lauren novels of all time, in my personal opinion. And I'd have to say that it's probably the closest book I've read to a Taylor Jenkins Reid novel from a romance author, or a romance author duo. And when I say Taylor Jenkins Reid, I mean Taylor Jenkins Reid's backlist, like their first 4 books before they wrote Evelyn Hugo. Twice in a Blue Moon definitely hits deep. It's one of those emotional reads. You guys can clearly tell I love emotional reads. I think it's because that as much as I appreciate the lovey-dovey, wholesome stuff, at the end of the day, a good romance pulls on your heartstrings because there's always a good trial in a good romance. The second last romance novel that I reckon is completely underrated, in my personal opinion. It's underrated because I feel like a lot of people stop reading the series based on book 1, but I mean, book 2 is so much better than book 1, and I'd have to say, if you are turned off by book 1, or if you don't want to read book 1, then just move on to book 2, which is Bad Girl Reputation by Elle Kennedy. Good Girl Complex is the first book in the Avalon Bay series, and that's not a book I recommend. Good Girl Complex has the worst love interest, and I hate to say it, but Bad Girl Reputation follows that love interest's brother. And I personally loved following Genevieve and Evan and their second chance romance story. I kind of liked this dynamic because even though they kind of acknowledge their toxic traits and what essentially gets them excited about each other, it's a very exciting romance novel, and I definitely appreciate some of the elements in this novel that are dealt with. It's not the perfect romance novel by all means. However, it is definitely a step up from Good Girl Complex, and I almost gave up on the Avalon Bay series. I enjoy the Avalon Bay series. I love the concept of it. It's just Good Girl Complex was absolutely terrible because Cooper was a bad love interest with terrible intentions to begin with. This was the novel I wanted out of Elle Kennedy. Unfortunately, my first Elle Kennedy novel was Good Girl Complex, and that did not go over well. If you were wanting a second chance with Elle Kennedy after reading that novel, then please give Bad Girl Reputation a try, because it does not have the same romantic dynamic as the first novel, and I hope that Elle Kennedy does not use that dynamic going forward, because that was terrible. Mr. Still Your Girl? Really? And the final romance novel I have to recommend that I reckon is underhyped, that more people need to read, is I Hate You More by Lucy Gilmore. I love this romance novel because it takes place at a dog show and there are golden retrievers. There are golden retrievers on this cover and they're just dogs everywhere in this romance. But also the dynamic between the two love interests is absolutely swoon-worthy, and it definitely really excited me. I was blushing a few times while reading this book, and I know that this book isn't necessarily the highest rated on Goodreads, but personally I don't recommend that you let that turn you off. I saw the ratings for this novel before getting it. Actually, Camillo purchased it for me because he saw how I was eyeing the cute golden retrievers on this cover. He saw how I was eyeing it. He's like, I'm gonna get it for you. And I'm so happy he did, because this ended up being one of my favorite romance novels on my shelf. I just personally have fond memories of this romance novel, and I mean, if you love dogs and if you love a good love story that is centered around a dog-themed book, then I would highly recommend you read I Hate You More. I am so sad that this romance novel does not get the hype that it deserves. It's just so underrated in my opinion, and I feel like revisiting it already. Just like some of the other romance novels that I have on this list, I think about this one a lot. So I guess it's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay till the end of the video, leave me the green heart emoji, because I love green, and I'm just thinking about green right now. And if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also, I have social medias. My GSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/GSwizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok. I'm at GSwizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you happy book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Started out with half and I flipped it into double. Started out with half and I flipped it into double.